a rare voice in Asian American Buddhism and in Buddhism in America in general. When I heard her, I was so impressed because I really thought, as exactly as she said, that these Asian American Buddhist voices are rare and we need more of them. So that's why it's important to hear what she has to say. And I think, as you heard from her historical material, that there is a tremendous amount that we have not heard about for Buddhists in America, in North America. For me, emotions arose during her presentation, regardless which ethnicity or color those come up. And I hope that as I watch them, you are also watching your emotions and seeing where they can be channeled. I have 4 parts to share. One is to begin with a personal introduction. I am Chinese American, and I was born in Taiwan and grew up in the suburbs of Seattle. I worked in civil rights before becoming an ordained nun in the 90s. When I was working in civil rights, I was sometimes overwhelmed by just constant checking and investigating of differential treatment and differential outcome. So I found personal solace in the Dharma. When I can free myself from those lenses of being discriminant about discrimination, I was and I am unburdened. Dharma. After being able to go deep for some time within, I found that I'm grateful for a practice that can bring me peace whenever I need it. But I do question whether I am only retreating into a protective cocoon. After years in a monastic institution and years away from it, from a formal monastic institution, I found that post-civil rights movement with racism, sexism, and other biases, they continue. Sometimes more egregious in their twisted forms now than 20-some years ago before I became a nun. I hear strange claims from perpetrators who dismiss discrimination in the face of blatant bias. Come on, they would say, you know, we've been through Martin Luther King. Come on, women can vote now. They get equal pay, equal treatment. Black versus white paradigm. We now have a racist paradigm that pulls the rug from underneath the old duality. Any misbehavior that seems to some of us like discrimination is given a reasoned excuse. Travel ban is not against a particular religion or ethnic group. It's for everyone's safety, for instance. So Dharma remains the center of my being, and I hope of Buddhists in general, of course, for me as an Asian American Buddhist nun, that there is an advantage to not being in the dominant group at times. I've been trained to look around the room to see who all are present, whereas the kind of attention was only projected to that which is external to me. The Buddhist teaching has taught me to also be mindful of what is happening in me. When I can be with the thoughts, emotions, and physical sensations in me while I enter a physical or relational space, my attention becomes useful, hopefully, inwardly and outwardly. A habit of awareness that I try to train and strengthen, just as biases and ignorances can be untrained and deflated. Communal. Some of the stereotypes of Asian Americans continue to bond Asian Americans together, perhaps surprisingly and unfortunately, such as our family's exhortations and expectations about being A students. You've heard these. Our general trait of avoiding conflict, being polite, at least on the surface, carrying some quiet, techie, geeky persona. In a predominantly Asian temple in the US, Asian Americans like myself can even feel out of place. And why is that? Because I have trouble sometimes with ethnic Asians adulating and wanting to be white, especially the few whites who are Sangha leaders. That's the trouble too. In a predominantly ethnic Asian Buddhist community, if the leadership is primarily white and white visitors are treated as being different but special, as in privileged, Asians and Asian Americans have very different attitudes about ethnic differences and privilege. Ethnic Asian Buddhists sometimes harbor a sense of adoration toward the predominant group, namely whites, in a new culture. At the same time, a sense of arrogance based on the teachings that migrated from the indigenous land of Asia and toward Westerners' ability to actualize those teachings authentically. So isn't it a strange turnaround? Both sides can claim delusion of the other side. Talk about othering, right? Polarity is being set up. So it helps to apply the Dharma of attentiveness to the increasingly subtle and slightly changing norms in Sanghas, whether predominantly Asian or Caucasian, led primarily by Easterners or Westerners. By the way, these are arbitrary labels, of course, because who's at the center? In either the Sangha scenario or the society at large, when a model minority breaks the mold, the same goes for women and others who are marginalized. Same thing with Funie, Dr. Hsu, when she wrote the article for Buddha Dharma, she was immediately called on. She's likely to be told that she's overly aggressive, ambitious, self-centered, conceited, and if she's a Buddhist, she's certainly not a Buddhist. Within Buddhist Sanghas and the Mahasangha across regions, we need Asian American voices who don't fit the mold, the obedient, only behind the scenes working or even manipulating mold. To conclude, at a structural level, I think it helps for Asian American Buddhists to share knowledge, information, and resources with each other and with those beyond the Asian American community, Asian American Buddhist community, so that we don't make the mistake of confusing cultural baggage for respect for heritage and vice versa, and can educate and ameliorate about it, so that we don't make the mistake of confusing implicit traits in ethnic Asians for inherent qualities to Buddhist training and vice versa, and can educate and ameliorate about it. NABA, North American Buddhist Alliance, would like to offer pan-Buddhist sacred spaces for Asian American Buddhists. We started to do that for POC Buddhists and white Buddhists. When I read the Lion's Roar article where one of the authors wrote that there is an Asian American Buddhist forum in existence, I followed up. I wanted to know, where is this? And then I learned from both the author of the article and the interviewee of the article that no, there is no such Asian American Buddhist forum. I offer up North American Buddhist Alliance as a space for an Asian American Buddhist forum starting online. I look forward to a pan-Buddhistic Asian American Buddhist sacred space.